Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully you can all hear me. Okay, I'm running good levels. Okay, upload's okay. We have a bit of a crowd. I'm doing little jet bike noises with this. Okay, I think we're up and going. Hello guys, and welcome to, well, the first of the month, even though we're halfway through. So last weekend I was at the Horse Heresy Weekender, picking up this guy. So yeah, this is a phenomenal sculpt. If you haven't seen it in person, if you're not lucky enough to have seen one in person, I can personally assure you that this is an unreal sculpt. And this video tutorial will be up by the end of the month, full 4K. So the way Patreon does their months, it's from the 4th until the 4th. So the full video upload will be up before the 4th of next month, with the way Patreon breaks it up. But anyway, enough of the boring details. Yep, 4K, Valdo, HD, and all the other words you want to throw at it. Super excited to bring this to you. In the meantime, I have been working on a few Custodes tutorials, one of which involves the jet bike that we see before us. Very handsome, I'm sure you agree. And from the last Custodes video that I done, there were quite a lot of questions concerning the gold wash, and it cropped up so often that I wanted to come back and explore it and answer that question in another one of these videos. So I wanted to explain exactly what the gold wash is, why it's used, and why it brings out such a luminosity in your miniatures. On top of that, I would also like to take you guys through how we deepen down, or how I deepen down custodian armor. So I'm working on a PDF tutorial that'll be available at the end of the month, involving these guys. You can see how it kind of glitters and glows, how you have that inner light that you just can't get with non-metallic metals. With real metallics, for real men, or real Custodes, you have this inner luminosity and shine that no matter where you move it, it reflects. So we'll have a PDF tutorial for that, a full 4K tutorial for Valdo, and a couple of seminars in between, examining any questions that you guys may have on the Golden Host. And for today, as I've said, we're examining the gold wash. So, up until this point, what is the gold recipe? Well, it starts off with a black base layer, so a black undercoat. Oops, sorry. Pop this underneath here so you can see it. So it's a black undercoat, and then I use a mixture of copper. Oh, that didn't work at all. Okay, just going to pop it off to the side. Copper and Ordo y Mano, which is dwarf gold to you and me. So it's roughly 60, 40, 70, 30 in favour of the copper. So the reason why we use a copper is that it has more red, it has more grip. When we airbrush this onto a surface, we don't need to use so many layers of this that we do this. It adheres to the black a lot better. And then we take some steel or whatever light silver color you have in your collection. In my case, I've used a mixture between white aluminium or aluminio blanco. White aluminium with some steel. The reason why I use this airbrush paint is that it has a bit more body to it as opposed to this, so it gives a bit more viscosity, a bit more thickness to the mixture. So that's the reason why I use the combination of the both. To give structure to the highlighting sequence. So the reason why I use this is in very much the same vein or the same way of thinking when it comes to doing the pre-coating technique, where we add black to a miniature and then a white pre-shade, like so, to define the values of the miniature, so the lightness or darkness on any portion of the miniature. Gosh, sorry, excuse me, I just coughed. So you can see the highlight layers here on top of here. So this is the pre-coat stage, this is the skeleton, this is the scaffolding from which we start to build on the paint job. So let's examine the gold wash a little bit more. So this is my mid-tone colour. When people ask me, what colour, say, is Ixon Hale. So let's have a look at Ixon Hale. What colour is this guy? In reality, he's not just one colour of gold. He is a variety of different shades, all overlapping one another in order to create this luminescent, glorious bastard we see in front of us. But you can't say this online. When you you can't answer like that online because you just sound like a dick. So when people ask me what colour do I do my Custodes, or what colour I do my Blood Angels, I normally reply with the mid-tone colour, in which case it's this, Dwarf Gold. And from here I start to modulate it with greens, violets, and more importantly, so if you own no other colour, make sure you have Hull Red in your collection. Hull Red, Incubi Darkness, Adriatic Blue, Murderous Magenta from Formula P3. These are the pillars of your painting success. Believe me when I tell you, because I can say that with all conviction. So the actual wash itself, let's see how thin we need to make it. So just got a container here, empty container, nothing in the bottom. There's no rabbits or anything. I'm not going to pull a trick on you. So let's examine exactly how thin we need to make this wash. Actually, just put this off to the side. I can show you on my much abused wet palette, because I've just built a new one this morning, or rather I should say I put a new container on the front. So we have some gold over here. Oh, actually this is perfect because I can show you on this miniature. This is a piece I have been painting alongside a student. Jan, you'll recognise this. Where I've been guiding him through the same principles on how you build that luminosity, that light with gold effects. So let's grab up a brush. So recently I've really fallen in love with using a slightly larger brush. In this case I'll be using the number 2 Winsor & Newton. Now these guys come to very fine tips, so there's no need to worry about overspill or anything like that. Oh, doesn't help, there's a bit of hair in here. Okay, so let's grab up some Oro Imano, pop it on a wet palette, and let's see how thin we make this. So it's exactly the same process I've used to build up the gold so far. I have, I wonder if there's any silver portions. If there aren't, I'll just read. Ah, okay. So on here, you can see how it's almost two-tone, how I have the mid-tone and then the silver highlight. So I've built this up in exactly the same manner. We have gone from a copper and dwarf gold base, then I've built it up with an airbrush to get the generalized tonal of the piece. Again, this will be available in the Valdo tutorial, and then I've come to do the brushwork. In this case I've used silver in here just to highlight it. But if you compare this to that section, this section here, you can see whenever I move the miniature it stays in place between the shadow and the light. So in order to knock this back into the mid-tone, I need to make a gold wash. So let's have a look at how thin this is. That's how thin I need. Actually, that's a little bit too thick. So this is the thinness of the paint. Incredibly thin. So far guys, I haven't had a chance to look at your comments, but keep them coming in. So I will do like a batch response after this. Okay, it's just going in between the little slats at the moment, but no need to worry about that at the moment. I'm just concentrating on overlaying this on top of the silver to bring it back into the mid-tone, into the nuance. You can see here I've done exactly the same thing. So let's overlap this gold wash. And you can see that it still looks much brighter. You can see here I've done exactly the same. Just a slight golden wash over here from the mid-tone to the highlight. You see it keeps the luminosity underneath. So if you haven't tried this technique before, it's gonna feel like a revelation trying this for the first time. Any silver on here? No. because we can use metallic paints in much the same way that we can use normal paints, built up in thin gradual layers to produce this luminosity to the piece. So that's how you do it with a brush. Okay, before I move on to the airbrush, I'm just going to have a look at the comments, see if there's any questions that I've rolled over or perhaps I've answered. Hello everyone. So the introduction still says green stuff. Whoop. Okay, so let's change that. Custodes Gold. Okay, hopefully it should change by the time you actually see this later. Okay. Right. Hello everyone. Anyone has video yet? We do. No. Oh, so no vid yet. Oh, now it's come through. So hopefully I've... right, all the settings are the same, so hopefully you guys let me know, are you still watching the video? Is the video still live? Otherwise I've just been talking into a void for the past 11 minutes or so. So I'm just going to clear this away. Oh, Phoenix, you're effing confused. What are you confused about? Hopefully I can try and alleviate some of your confusion. So just pop in the brush. So if you haven't seen this before, brush care, we could do a minor piece on brush care. So now I need to put this away. I'm going to slightly dampen the brush, run this in some brush soap that I have, make sure it gets in all the bristles, wash it away, and then I leave some of the soap on my hand. I just roll the brush around it to come to a point. Make sure the soap stays in every aspect of it. So right from the base of the ferrule through to the bristles. Just want to bring it to a fine point. Add the plastic protective cap on the top. And I like storing my brushes bristle down. So the reason I do that is any moisture will run down the brush rather than run up it into the metal ferrule. Now I've heard some people that it doesn't really matter if you do that, but in my head it kind of makes sense, so okay. Cool, so it looks like you guys are able to see the video, and Phoenix is still confused about the entire gold wash. Okay, right, let's start this again. Let's see if I can make myself more clear. So, right, whenever with the way I constructed gold, I like going from a dark gold, a darker gold color, and then I use the silver as a pre-shade, much in the same way that I use black and then white for the pre-shading tones. Now the gold wash can be used in a very similar way that we use regular washes. So I want this to be my mid-tone, my combining color, the color that draws these very disparate, two very separate colors together. So in order to create that, I need to create a wash-like consistency with the gold. So hopefully it will become a little bit more clear once I airbrush this thing. So again, if that still isn't clear, let me know and I'll try and explain it a little bit further. But if there's anything in particular about the gold wash that is confusing, if you can try and specify it as much as you possibly can. So if you're confused about the consistency of the paint, if you're confused about this application, why we need to do it, I can perhaps better explain myself then. But otherwise, let's go on to the Dwarven Gold. So with a brush, I'm using the Iowata HPCH, finest airbrush god ever put on this planet, or Buddha, or your chosen deity of choice, Malal. Okay, and for this I'm running the airbrush at around 15 psi. Now something I've noticed, especially with teaching 101, that psi depends on airbrush to airbrush. So some of the Sotar or the Badger airbrushes require slightly higher psi. Try running it around 40 if you do have a Sotar. We need the brush consistency or the airflow to be so consistent that you can write your name. In fact, if you are new to airbrushing or if you're unsure of how fine you can airbrush, there's an exercise I'd like you to do. load up the airbrush and try to write your name 10 times, each time getting finer, and this will give you an indication of how fine we can make this. We can use the airbrush. For this, I won't be able to write my name because we're creating a wash. It's the wrong kind of consistency. So let's add some of this into the cap. Oh. I don't think he wants to play die. I don't think it wants to play dice for me, guys. Nope. Okay. So, where I said dropper bottles were easy. Oh, liars. Okay. Whoop. Just a small amount of gold in there. In fact, that's a little bit too much for what we need, but hey ho. I'm using forge roll thinner, so you can see exactly how much I put in the cap. I put a shed load in the cap. How many drops is that, guys? Can you tell me? Because I haven't got an idea. I always get confused over when I come to narrate these things or when I come to talk about them online, how many drops per paint you should do. It always comes down, you put a smidgen, you put a dash, you put a slash of it. I'm not the most precise of workers, I guess. Okay. So, let's try a little bit of this. You can tell I've been developing a Custodes tutorial, but I've ruined the backing already. So if you can see on here, that's slightly too thick. Slightly too thick, because I can see the pigmentation. So let's add a very small amount more, and this should give us our gold wash consistency. So this is how consistent the paint is. Let's pop that off to the side and let's paint my nails. See, incredibly thin. Incredibly thin. Now, when it comes to painting with airbrushing with paints this thin, the temptation will be to hold the airbrush in one place and leave the paint gather. It splotches up and then it starts to run. With this, we just need a little bit of faith. Then when we pass it over the top, that paint has actually come out of the airbrush. We need to allow that to fully settle before moving on to the next stage. So let's airbrush all the golden parts for this miniature. So I'm covering up the silver and the gold. I'm covering it all up. That's the first step, and as you can see, even at this early stage, it started to unite those mid-tones, the shadows, and the highlights. I'm just going to give this a blast with a hairdryer, so apologies for the loud, annoying sound you're going to hear. But shoot me any questions if you have them. Now's the time. Okay, layer 1. As you can see, it hasn't really made much of a difference here. This is the temptation to lean on the airbrush and go, "Ah," and you end up with that. No good. So, second thin coat. Hit it with a hairdryer. Third thin coat. And there you go. It's blended into a gold. So you see, I mean, Duncan does have a point. I mean, love him or hate him, 2 thin coats should be a mantra. Shit, can I get sued by Games Workshop for saying that? If I start stealing his thing. 3 thin coats. You need 3 thin coats, not 2. Two's bullshit. You need 3. Two thin coats is for amateurs. 2 thin coats for 40k players. Just lost a lot of viewers there, I think. Okay. There you go. still could have been worse. I could have suggested that all Custodes are exotic and vindictive. Okay, so 3 thin layers should do the job. Just pop that there. Right, gonna allow that to dry. Let's have a look at any comments that might come up. Okay. So that I don't want to touch that for the moment. But if you do have any questions, it doesn't only have to be about Custodes. It could be about anything that you have in your mind. Now is the time to ask. If I have any examples here, I can show them to you. If not, I see if I can steal one from somewhere. Here we go. Do I dare? Do I dare? Yep. Okay. So as you can see, the light reflections are there. They're more luminous in the highlighted portions than they are on the shadow, and that's what creates that very nice start to developing the Custodes Gold. So Phoenix asks, how does he cheat on his wife and get away with it? Not the. I can help you with painting, mate. Not much else. Okay. So, gonna empty this out, and let's go on to developing the shadows of this. So to clean out the airbrush, I have one of these. Well, I have an old towel, an old, really used towels. This towel's seen some things. And I also have one of these to just airbrush any spray, excess spray into. Get some airbrush cleaner. Whoop. Okay. So the reason why I'm holding the tip of the airbrush is to get some blowback. You can see those bubbles coming through, just to make sure that there are no excess paint particles in the airbrush. And it seems quite good, it seems quite clear. Okay, the next stage, let's deepen down the shadow. So I can show you the beginning process of the shading process. I can show you the beginning to how to shade this gold. Now again, there will be a much fuller tutorial on how we do all the so the red you're going to really love how to do. Again, that very cherry candied red. So Mark asked, do you always seal your minis with satin varnish, or do you like 2 or 3 layers? So it honestly depends on the project. If I was, so with this for example, I've put a layer of masking fluid on first, but below this I want to give the impression of a very highly shined surface, so I've given a couple of layers, well 2 to 3 layers of gloss varnish to give that candy coat effect. With the gold, because the Custodes are primarily gold, I will give this a gloss varnish and I'll leave it as they are. So with this miniature for example, I've used a gloss varnish over the top. For Space Marines and normal armor, I would consider using a satin varnish, because it's that halfway point between a matte varnish, which dulls and flattens everything down, and a gloss varnish, which everything looks bright and shiny. And it almost has, it brings out a little bit more of the depth of the coloration we have here. Personally, I prefer using matte varnish on all my miniatures. Mostly because it makes them much easier to photograph. So on the video I can spin this round and you can see all the light reflections coming off the miniature. Now when photographing a true metallic miniature, it's goddamn murder. You can see it on the official Valdor pics for the Forge World Studio. The paint job doesn't look anywhere near as good as it does in real life, for this reason, that photographing gloss varnish miniatures is murderous. So I matte varnish all my miniatures just so that my viewers can have a much fuller representation of what the paint job is. So I hope that's not too frustrating of an answer, but that's the rationale behind the different varnishes. If I were using a gaming army, I would consider using a satin varnish because it offers some of the protection of a gloss varnish miniature, and it gives you some of the benefits of having a matte varnished miniature. Okay, so are you going to show how to paint OSL on metals? I hadn't planned on showing OSL in this piece, but I can guide you through the theory of it. Certainly, I do have a tester piece here with OSL, so I can guide you through how to create that OSL effect. But for this, I just wanted to show you how to how to begin to add shadows to your custodian or your golds. If you're just itching to get painting those custodians, I wanted to put out a basic video covering this. And of course, at the end of the month, there will be a much fuller video explaining the entire process with Valdor and a PDF. Speaking of which, what are you guys working on? You know exactly what I'm working on at the moment. What about yourselves? So I saw Mike pop up earlier, and he's got some amazing white scars in the works. Very, very jealous. And you must be over the moon with the news of the weekender that your guys are getting bumped up. Phoenix, I know you're working on some Sons of Horus, but I'm not sure about the rest of you guys. So let me know what you're working on. So I've just loaded up the brush with some Hull Red. I'm going to begin the shading process. So where do we place the shadows on this miniature? Well, hold it under a single strong light source. I mean, like we can see in front of us. It's a weird thing that I'm looking through the camera screen at where the light reflections are, or where the shadows are rather, I should say. So underneath here is a good place to put the shadows, along this arc here and along here. So that's where I'm going to start to develop the shadows. So because we're working with a real metallic miniature, always refer back to a photograph or a screen so you can see exactly where to place the shadows. So that's the first hit of Hull Red. So along here. I want to give an impression of a weather streak. Just passing that over the miniature. It's starting to look like something now. So Mike, if you're still listening, who has the better jet bikes? Custodes or White Scars? So much detail there, it's just going to be covered up by some dude's back. Okay, and that's all I need for the first pass over the airbrush. Now I can deepen this ever further with another layer. See, it's starting to get that really nice transitional tone there. But that's how I go about shading my custodians. You could do the same thing with infantry. So it's a little bit behind where we're at the moment. So we need to give this a gold wash. Do you want to see this guy get gold wash? So you can, yeah, I'll show you just so you have an idea of what to do with infantry. So I need to go back a step. And in the meantime, any questions, whack them up. So Mike's still working on scars, been chipping speeders forever. Yeah, so when you're painting an army especially, you'll get through the airbrush stages and you feel like you're flying, like, wow, I'm going to get 3,000 points done in no time flat. And then it comes to the details. It comes to putting in the bolter casings or the metallics or just those little bits and pieces that'll take forever to do. Hopefully be done by the time Malevolence comes out. I bet that's the plan. So, for the red in the bike, are you using Tamiya Red? No, I haven't used Tamiya Red. So, the full process has been filmed, but basically it's a pre-coating layer of black, then white, and then I've used, what are you? Blood Red by Scale 75. I've built up through the layers using Sunny Skin Tone, and then I've added a marble effect on top with pure white, and then I've used inks on the top of that to shade it back in. But again, that entire process has been filmed and it will be up much sooner rather than later. So for infantry miniatures, it's the same exact process we go through, exactly the same. So let's go with... Oh, hello Alistair, how are you? Just going through gold, because everything's gold this month, as Custodes crazy. I'm just talking about what you guys are working on. So Alistair, what have you been working on? Anything heretical? How is the Kingdom Death miniature we've been painting alongside one another? Have you managed to get any more work on her done? Another one of my students wants to work on more Kingdom Death stuff. Yeah, so lots of phallic things I'll be working on over the next few months. Okay, so with this, it's exactly the same consistency of paint we used last time. Again, the temptation is to think one huge transitional leap. But no, we need several thin layers. Otherwise this entire thing falls down. So I'm just going to hit this with a hairdryer. Actually, I better do his arm at the same time. So this is actually a commission for somebody, and I think he'd be mightily pissed off if I only did one arm. One-armed custodians. Okay. Second stage. Let's bring in a little bit closer, so you can see what happens. So, a couple of thin coats. There you go. Look at that. Very handsome chappy. Let's do his arm. Just need to let that settle. And then we'll come in with the hull red once again. So, Alistair's very excited for gold right now. Just picked up Dawn from the post office. Oh, you lucky sod. Frank, busy building some of the web. So I need to contact you after this, Frank. Don't. I haven't forgotten. Right. Busy building shield captains and tribunes. Oh my god! Please tell me it's not the loadout where he has the 3-up rerollable and the power fist. Please tell me you haven't done that, Frank. Please. Okay, been working on the Mastodon as well. Wow. Yep, I'll be working on the Mastodon in the next couple of months. And again, another commission piece, really interesting work. I will be detailing the interior of it to make it look almost like a hearth for a Space Wolf company. So really looking forward to that. So that will be going up on the Patreon as well, obviously. It's too good of an opportunity not to. Okay, so bit of hull red. Let's just bring this out slightly. Okay. So, hull red. Let's develop the underside of the slats. For the miniature itself, just underneath the gorget, and the outer portion of this helmet. On his shoulder pad, okay. And there you go. That's how you develop an infantry as well. Exactly the same method. Have a look at what it looks like under a strong light source. And try and develop the tonal range as much as possible. And then you can go on to refine it with a brush. And there you go. That's the basic introduction into how I go about creating very quick, easy gold for custodians. So, are there any more questions on that? Let me know, post them up. Otherwise, I'll do a brief summary of how you go about doing OSL or miniatures, or the thinking behind OSL. And I'll tell you a recipe as well, a blue recipe. I'll let you in on the secret that isn't a secret. Just clean out the airbrush. So, Alistair's found a load of cats to go on Dawn's base. If you're not familiar with the Eye of Horus, they have they had a segment, I believe it's the Mount Rushmore of Primarchs. Anyway, they got on the conversation of how many cats could Dawn eat. If any of you know, write into them. I'm sure they'd love to know. Okay, just clean this out. Clean, clean, clean. Okay, no more question on that. Let's have a look at OSL. Okay, that's clean enough. OSL. Object source lighting. In my opinion, it only really works when you have a miniature that you could give context to that shine to. In this case, we're using a watch in the dark, and the reason why this OSL is successful is that we have plenty of robes that give the reflection points to the miniature that makes it look like it's glowing. When it comes to, we can do a similar thing when it comes to plasma coils. Again, I actually went through this with a student yesterday, and he photographed stage by stage how he did his own Ultramarines plasma coils, which I'll post up on the Patreon page, and I'll post it up on the Facebook page, and I'll post it up on the alumni. So it will be readily available for you. It's more of like a stage by stage picture thing. It won't be like a full-blown PDF produced at the end of every month. Just a quick little tutorial on how you do it, as well as a recipe. So for this, if you bring up your colour wheels, have a look at turquoise. Now turquoise, magenta and yellow occupy very specific points of interest in the colour wheel. In regards to that, these three colours as well as black can be used to mix up a majority of colours. They're used in printing, they're used in commercial imaging businesses. So turquoise is a very particular colour in that it triggers certain receptors in our eyes that make it a lot more appealing to look at. So the one I like to use is Adriatic blue. Love using this colour. You can also buy turquoise by Vallejo. Again, an excellent turquoise. And when it comes to plasma coils, or this miniature in particular, I'd like you to paint in the entirety of the blade of the OSL area. Then with an airbrush, we airbrush white in the center portion of the light. For plasma coils, it could be in the very center. So I can show you this. I wonder if it'll focus. So we're going through here. We've just begun the sketch stage on this. The plasma coil's in the middle. That's where you want the light, bright light. And then you overlay the outer area of this with a secondary color. This secondary color, if you look at your color wheel, where turquoise sits, it's somewhere between blue and green. Sorry, excuse me. So I really like using green as my secondary color because it gives it that electrical feel. Now, for the most part, we want to shy away from moving around the hues when it comes to constructing color schemes. Because they give oddly electrical looks. But in this case, this is what we're looking for, oddly electrical look. So I like spraying on the very outer rim, on the outer portions of the miniature, green, to give that reflective glow. And then I take my original colour in Adriatic blue, and I airbrush this in the centre over the white, and I try and spill this over into other aspects of the miniature, just to pick up on that outer glow you have going on there. And then finally, to finish, it's pure white in the center. Now don't worry if there's any overspill with the airbrush. That's what we're looking for. That's what gives that afterglow effect, by having it spill slightly over. And that's how you go about producing blue or ice blue OSL, and the basic methodology behind it. So you can apply this to a variety of different colors, oranges, yellows, purples. Just stick with a color, have a look at the color wheel, pick a color, and then move around the hues, move around the colors for a secondary color to reinforce it and give that electrical look. Okay, what's the Illumini? You're talking about Illuminati? Wait there, Mike. You're going to get a knock on the door. So if there are no other questions, that will be it for today. I'm trying to keep these sessions slightly shorter than an hour, because I realise when watching back, you may not necessarily want to watch an entire hour of me doing something for one or two pieces of information. So I'm trying to keep these short and sweet. That's the reason why I'm trying to cut them down as much as possible. So I'm going to give a few more minutes. If there are no other questions, I'll shoot off. And if you do have any other questions, please post them up on the Patreon page. Please post them up on the Facebook page. Get in contact with me directly. And I'll try and develop another video for next time, hopefully. Oh, that's my pleasure, Johan. Oh, Johan? Sorry, Johan. Right, yeah, I think that's it. So I will bid you adieu, guys. I will catch you soon. Have a good one. Let me know what you're working on. And if you implement any of these techniques I've shown you today, please, please, please post them up to me. I'd love to see. And if you share your work on any social media sites, include a link to the Patreon as well. You have no idea how much that helps me. That's like the biggest thing you could do for me as a little thank you. And again, I'd like to thank you again for being a patron to this, and I will catch you next time. Stop.